Good evening. Welcome to the January 24th, 2023 school committee meeting. I'm the chair, Elizabeth Spinney, and I call the meeting to order. First off, we have public comment. Do we have anybody here for public comment? All right, seeing none, I will move on to general business. And first up, we have a Grafton Middle School update. So welcome. We have our principal and assistant principal here tonight. Would you please introduce yourselves for the crowd, and then please go ahead.
Okay, I'm Roseanne Karpaska, principal of Grafton Middle School.
And I'm Christine Martellio, assistant principal, Grafton Middle School.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. We're actually gonna, I switched these so that I'm gonna thank people first. Yeah, I was thinking about it. All right, so I wanted to first just begin by thanking everyone for everyone. I mean, this definitely takes a village. So I wanted to thank our students, our staff. I wanted to thank our school advisory council who worked hard in collaboration with us on our school improvement plan. And I wanted to thank our district administrative team in so many ways for their support. And of course, you, school committee, who is very, very supportive of our school.
We're going to start tonight just kind of highlighting our school's pillars and kind of how we incorporate this to our everyday, just our everyday culture over at Grafton Middle School. So our school pillars are be respectful, be responsible, be grateful, and be kind. And we start the year off with something called One Grafton. And so for the first 3 days of the school year, we kind of orient everyone back to school and kind of spread the culture and get everybody kind of learning and understanding the expectations of the school. And every day throughout the whole school year, we reiterate those through our morning announcements. So every morning, excuse me, the children start with a moment of mindfulness. So we do the pledge and then we do a moment of mindfulness. So they have a full minute every morning. Where there's a short video. Sometimes there's words that go along with it. Sometimes it just tells them how to meditate for a minute just to kind of center themselves. And then we go through and remind them of all the activities that are happening within the school. Do some shout outs for students because there's always something fabulous to celebrate, including birthdays. And then we will end with some more behavioral expectations and the pillars. So we want to make sure that, we kind of bring this in. It's not just kind of like this is the expectation and then we're done with it. And we expect our middle schoolers to understand that. So we make sure that we reiterate that with them on a daily basis.
And on the positive side, we also have what's called principal positive phone calls where any staff member could submit something to me about something a student has done that's outstanding, and I'll make the call on behalf of the staff member to a family, and that goes over really well. I love when I can leave a message because they'll play it for everyone, the dog, the mailman, whoever shows up. And then we also do monthly random acts of kindness where staff nominates students when they see them engaged in a random act of kindness. So trying to reinforce the positive.
I'm just wondering how you introduce those phone calls so the parents' hearts don't sink when they see that there's a phone call from the principal.
It is so funny because I say, hello, this is Roseanne Karpaska, Grafton Middle School principal, and I'm calling for a positive reason.
There you go.
As quickly as I can. So this is like a definite don't for presentations. There's so much wording, but we're going to. It was difficult to create this because there are so many things going on, and these are each of our 4 school improvement goals in our school improvement plan. So the first one is to incorporate strategies that maximize student engagement and personalized learning in order to meet the individualized needs of students. And I'm showing you how we're doing this in so many different ways. I'll speak more to the UDL, Universal Design for Learning. We have professional development, a real focal point on that. And we have an infrastructure of student support team meetings that every department and team has, so that and then we also have a vertical meeting, so that we have the meetings that go across teams and grade level, and then we have vertical meetings so that nothing's falling through the cracks. Students are not falling through the cracks. We're able to communicate with everyone in the school. Every 2 weeks, we've reached everyone, which is very important. at any level, but at the middle school level, we're focused on not only the academics, but the, social, emotional, and behavioral. So, so the next slide focuses more on a few things. The one thing in the previous slide I just wanted to mention is that we are attending our Quebec trip. 36 students are attending, 8th and 9th graders, and that's February 3rd through 5th. So that's a nice addition to our program for French students, and we did open it up for any students that wanted to go as well. So in this slide, it describes just a little bit more what we're doing with regard to our focused professional development on universal design for learning. So the teachers are focused on training on using UDL, specifically multiple means of representation, which is really just sharing with students the new information in multiple ways, using multiple modalities. So, so they're conducting 4 pilots this year. We're on pilot 2. We'll be sharing out on the early release day of February 1st. And it's really wonderful for the teachers to share the ideas that they had and the strategies they've tried, and they're incorporating them into their practice as they go, and they're learning from one another. And, Tracy Kalo is also helping us with this endeavor. And then the second item, the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 services, that's focused on meeting individual student needs. Tier 1 are those services that all students receive. So our UDL instructional practices, our social emotional program, learning program, language arts writing centers, everyone in the school gets all of that. Tier 2 is provided to those students that are struggling to a certain degree in a different area. So for example, last year we started our academic advisory program where we have each team select 6 students that really could use some academic help. And they go to the library instead of their related arts classes for 4 out of the 6-day cycle. And they get assistance with completing work and learning skills, just to give them that boost. And at the end of the 6 weeks, it's determined as to whether they do another 6 weeks or not. So it's not like they're in it and then they're in it for the whole year. It really depends on what their need is. And then Tier 3 is more the high-risk students that need even additional supports for academic or behavioral success. So we have all levels, and we're looking at all levels, and we want to build on all levels so that we can help all of the kids in the school, and they all need different things, really. Our Schoology courses, I want to say this is maybe our 5th year in Schoology, and most, pretty much all subjects have their Schoology courses up and running online. We're urging parents to join. That's very, very important because parents can join the parent portal. They can open their own parent portal and they can create notifications for themselves so that they can see what assignments might be missing. If a student is out sick, and we still have a lot of children out sick, they can go on and do some work that's on there. Teachers are uploading the majority of the items and the projects that are happening. So Schoology has been a real plus for us. And then the teachers can also modify and adjust for individual students, and they can also communicate. Parents and students can communicate through Schoology. And then there's a lot of creative things going on. I just picked a couple, but creative instruction to increase engagement. So, in the math departments, they're having these cribbage competitions, and then linear stained glass window competition, Scholastic's hardest math program, and one of the nice after-school activities we have this year is Math Counts competition. We had 2 high school students come down and they wanted to start a math club, and so Mr. Koss agreed to be the advisor, and they will be going to competitions, which is pretty cool. So we're hoping to keep that going into next year. This was a pilot year. Thank you.
Our school improvement plan, goal 2, some of this was already touched upon by Ms. Kropaska, but, so I'll just read it out, and then there's a couple of things I just wanted to make sure we touched on. So to align and revise curriculum horizontally within grade levels and vertically across grade levels, and teach as written with a focus on integrating authentic, personalized learning experiences and assessments for all students. So a couple of the things that I wanted to touch on, in addition to what Ms. Krapaska already mentioned, was the STAR benchmark, which I'm actually going to flip this because you can see it in a little bit more detail here. The STAR benchmark right now, our students are taking it in ELA and math 3 times per year. So this is the first time that the teachers have utilized this data. So it's taking a little bit of time to kind of dig through and determine the best way to use the data, but it's nationally normed, which is great. So it tells us how our students are compared to the nation, not just like for MCAS or something like that. It's across the board, it's nice, and it will help us as we go and drive through some of this vertical alignment. I know the math team or the math department will be beginning that process soon. So it will be helpful to drive some of that instruction and determine the best content and curriculum. And so it's allowing our teachers to really dig deeper and have more sources of data to look at. The one thing that, to me, as many of you know, this is my first year here in Grafton, that was really impressive is how much collaboration time the teachers have and that they utilize so well. So not only do they have their monthly faculty meetings, which everybody is coming to, but there's also department meetings, and they have daily prep together. They have a lot of common planning time. So they're able to really look at what they're doing in each other's classrooms and align that as best as possible. And that's always a work in progress, but I think with the UDL, coupled with the amount of time that teachers have and utilize well, we are going to start seeing a lot more of that creativity because they're starting to share some of those things with one another. So I think we mentioned February 1st, we're going to look at our second pilot. So the first time was really fun to listen to them sharing their experiences and what did and didn't work well. So I'll be interested to see how that goes in February. And then the other thing was, and I know that Ms. Krapaska touched on it a little bit, but the SST meetings. So not only do we meet every week, or every couple of weeks with each team, but every Friday we meet as an admin and a counseling team, and we have the nurse, and we try to make sure that we don't, as she said, nobody falls through the cracks. So we are making sure that we're kind of touching on all these students and what's happened over the week and try a quick summary. So it really is important so that students don't go falling through the cracks. And so those are just some of the nice things that I appreciate that Grafton is doing.
And then moving to goal 3, to increase the level of active participation of families and community members within the GMS community. Again, I mentioned it already, but increasing parent-guardian participation on Schoology. We, again, conducted our open house and our parent-teacher conferences with hybrid options for the parents, and we're finding that we have more of a response from families. So the parent-teacher conferences in particular, several working parents said, thank you, because it enabled them to still be working wherever they were, Boston or wherever they were, and they could join in on parent-teacher conferences, which was nice. We've expanded our interaction with the high school this year, and I'll explain that in the next slide as well. But we've also, the GHS DECA board came down and presented to 8th graders that are interested in business careers. So that was new for us this year. And if you go to the next slide, a little bit more detail. So you're gonna ask me to stop talking about Schoology, but parent-guardian participation in Schoology. Last year, we had 163 parent portal Schoology accounts. This year, 238 out of a total of 528 students. So we are going to continue to make a push to ask families to get onto Schoology so that they can see what's happening with their child. I mentioned the hybrid virtual and in-person open house night and parent-teacher conferences. And then something that's really going well this year is the Grafton High School College and Career Counselor is meeting with our 8th graders 3 times throughout this year in either single classes or double classes. So quite a few meetings for 3 times the whole 8th grade, which is about 290 students. And the first meeting, they completed and reviewed the Learn on Style survey on Naviance. So this is helping our students get acclimated to Naviance, which they'll be using all throughout their high school career, and then when they start looking at colleges. And then the second lesson completed and reviewed a personality survey. So these things were informative for them personally and fun, and they seemed very engaged. The third meeting will be to review the Grafton High School Program of Studies, and we timed it so that it's right at the time where they're going to be deciding on which classes they'd like to take in ninth grade. So these meetings are getting every eighth grader into the high school a few times, and also they're exposed to Naviance, getting used to using it, which is important. And then our school, this is still the same, goal number 3. We have I think, a phenomenal relationship with Blackstone Valley Education Foundation. We conducted a field trip to the St. Gobain Research Company, and it was a phenomenal trip. We took a tour around their facility, and I know I was not alone, but you have no idea how many things go on there and how much they're creating. So it was a wonderful thing for students and STEM. And then we also had students attend the Blackstone Valley STEM Conference at Tufts University, the Grafton campus, on a Saturday. And that was 10 students invited to attend. And another program that I absolutely love through the high school is our GHS. Actually, that should be GHS, Community Service Students. Let me change it on here. So we have 19 GHS students that have already done community service at the middle school. And they're either in our school for one period for half a year or for a full year. And they help out in classrooms, they help out in the office, they'll help with a number of different things for us. And it's a nice piece for them to come back, work with the teacher that they had years ago. It's a nice piece.
Okay, so school improvement plan, goal 4, this one I'm really excited about, to tell you about some of these awesome things that we're doing. So these were some of the strategies and programs to foster a safe school environment. So substance-free, respectful of all people, again, going back to those pillars and kind of our expectations. So I'm gonna hit on these with some detail. Hold on one second, give me one sec. All right, just want to make sure I'm on the
Are
right
you going
spot.
back? You
Yeah,
wanna go
I
back?
think I skipped one. Did I skip one?
That's it.
That was where you started.
Yeah.
Okay,
this is
yeah,
where
you know what, we
stand.
moved them around and it probably got, so, hold on, I gotcha. All right, we're gonna go in order here. 180 Days of Awesome was the first one. We switched them on ours, but they didn't get switched
Oh,
here,
you
so
know,
it's
yeah.
okay, it's fine, I got it here.
Is that- Okay.
So it's the same content, just in a little different order. We were trying to make them so they were in order. So the 180 Days of Awesome, pretty much what we have is our students are provided a lesson on day 2, so once every cycle. Block 5, so their block 5 is always a little bit longer because that's where our lunches are. So their block 5 is a little bit longer. And so it goes along with there's a theme every month. And I'll talk a little bit about our ambassador program, which is similar but different than the high school, what the high school does with their students that they send down to us for to help with students. That's actually part of their content for a class, which ours is a little different. And so the students, we try and build this all together with different themes each month. And so the teachers have a Schoology course, and they all are teaching the students the different lessons throughout the year. And then, just want to make sure I'm in order here. Behavior matrix, let me see what that one is, because it got moved around. I will find it. If it's not there, I'm just gonna, no, it's not there.
This
I'm
is an
gonna-
old
that's fine.
version-
Yeah, it's
an
an old
older
version.
version of
So
it.
I'll just go on mine here. So our behavior matrix. So one of the things I wanted to make sure that we chatted about was our new behavior matrix and expectations. One of the things we talked about at the beginning was those first 3 days, which was our One Grafton program. So when we started our One Grafton program, we started a big push at the beginning of the year about these are the expectations that we have. So it's not like rules or what have you. It's just this is how how we expect everybody to be. So we expect you to do this in the hallways, and we expect this when you're in the classrooms, and we expect this when you're in the cafeteria. And so when we talk to students, and I talk to them about, you know, what's going on, why are you here? And I show them, I say, well, what part of this is, you know, what part of this were you struggling with? That kind of a thing. And so we go through the behavior matrix, and then there's a process and a protocol for each one of those things. And students have really been receptive to that and seem to really understand what those expectations are. So it's really led to a lot less office managed situations. And so we are also keeping really close track of that data, which has been really helpful when we're talking to parents or when we're having meetings for a 504 or an IEP, or just having parents come in and meet. On that same note, with our SmartPass, that data isn't quite as clean because not the entire school hasn't been using it all year. But starting February 1st, the entire school is going to be using it. So that's another data collection piece that helps, again, with the student management. So everybody has really taken to it. It's been really great. So you can kind of see a little picture there, and you're welcome to look it up online. It's a pretty cool program, and it's really easy to use. So students just go in, and they can create a pass if they need to go to the men's room, the ladies' room, they need to go to the nurse, get bubbler, locker, office, counselor. I actually created a pass today for a student that's coming to see me tomorrow morning. So you can create passes in advance, so that teacher already knows that student has a pass, so she's good to go. And so at any point in time during the school day, we can bring up a dashboard, and it will tell us who's out of the classrooms and where they are. So it's great for school safety. Because we'll know that in a moment's notice. The other thing that it's really great is we can limit how many students are in one place at a time. So there aren't going to be 10 students signing out for the second floor boys bathroom, for instance, because there's only 3 passes for the second floor boys bathroom. So until somebody closes out a pass, nobody else can open one for that particular place. So that is really cut down with like kind of the, you know, everybody kind of likes to gather in the bathrooms, and that's a fun place to be. I don't know why, but so it's really cut all of that down. And then the other piece too is we can actually set pass limits. So if we have a student that we notice has really been taking advantage, we can call parents, email parents. Right now we have every student with 5 a day. We can also make that more. So we do have some students that have medical needs that need unlimited passes, so we can make that more, and teachers can override it as well. But we can also make it less. So if we feel like students are really starting to take advantage of it, we can cut that down, and then they need to be overrode. It's not just a permission, and then that kind of flags. So we can keep track of that. So those things we haven't had to worry about too much yet because the entire school wasn't online, but we will be in about a week. The other thing too that's really nice on our end is we can actually restrict students that are in the hallway together. So if there's been a bullying situation and Roseanne and I are not supposed to be in the hallway at the same time, if she has a pass open, I can't open a pass, or at least it will tell me that there's a restriction and it needs to be overrode. So the teacher can go in and see what the restriction is and determine if it's okay or not. Like that person might get the nurse or whatever, it might not be a problem. So that's a nice thing on our end too, for the safety side of things, is that we can kind of restrict students from being in the hallways at the same time.
And also the amount of time they're out.
Yep, and the amount of time they're out, it clocks that. So they start a pass, and then it will just keep going. And teachers often will end the pass and then make a note that the student just didn't stop the pass. I think they're getting more used to that. Most of the 8th grade has been doing it for a while now. Some of the 7th grade has just started. So I think once they get used to that, they'll get used to shutting them off, and they'll be telling each other to shut them off because they'll want to be able to use that pass to go wherever it is they need to go. Yep. So that's part of the
I think it's
of the big
important
picture.
too, because sometimes if a student is out for a length of time, then the teacher will call the office and we can go check on the student, make sure the student is okay.
I just had a quick question. Are the students using the Chromebooks to do that?
Yep,
Okay. They're not
And-
using phones?
correct.
No. Oh, no.
Correct. Nope. You can use and some teachers will have their, so we do have some iPads They were kind of left over that the computer teacher had. So we are actually, you can put the app onto the Chromebook, onto the iPad, and they can use it like a classroom sign out. So if they're, if there's a test or what have you, and it's a written test, and they don't need to go get their computer and that kind of a thing, there are some teachers that it's called kiosk mode. So some teachers are using kiosk mode. Like I know our music teacher is using it because he very rarely has the students on their computers, and so it just makes it's an easier flow in that classroom. So yes, there's an app version, but there's also an online version, so they can use either one.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's scoot to, the after school. I see
Yep,
that was you.
yep, we have, well, did you want to speak to GMS ambassadors?
Oh, yes, I missed that one.
Yeah.
Oops, I knew I'd missed something. It was out of order. Sorry about that. So I did, we mentioned a little bit about our ambassador program and how the GHS students come down and do community service. Once a month, we actually have our students that go down to the elementary schools. So each team chooses 3 or 4 students per month to go along with that theme. So depending on the theme of the month, we actually just sent out an email to parents today for our ambassadors for this month, and they'll get all their certificates and their permission slips tomorrow. So on Tuesdays, right after lunch, once like I believe it's the last Tuesday of every month, depending on which elementary school they went to, we go and we bring them to their elementary schools. And they do a variety of things. So the last time we went down, I was at Millbury Street School the last time, and they did almost like a panel discussion. So we had a group of our students and a group of Millbury Street students, and then they switched them out. And they had some of our students go into classrooms, and other students came in for more like a panel discussion. There's been other times where, as one of the students and I, we literally did, at North Street, we did a lunch duty. And so there was just one adult in the lunchroom, and I said, his next class wasn't starting for like 20 minutes, and I said, well, come with me, we'll go check out the cafeteria. And he had a great time chatting with the kids, and he felt like a big kid. It was really fun. And so they just do different things. Sometimes they'll read, sometimes they'll work one-on-one with a student. So it really just depends on the needs and what's going on in the classrooms at that time.
The elementary school asked if the students that come from the middle school can speak to Nature's Classroom and speak to the 6th graders about it, which was a nice idea.
Yep, I think that's going to happen next week.
Okay, yeah. All right, so the next,
The after-school enrichment.
the whole school collaborative.
I know we're
We did
trying to get back
reorder
on
this,
track
but
here.
this is an old copy, I apologize.
Just follow your own. Yeah,
Where we, I'm not sure where it went. Oh, here it is. So this is the second half to we do a lot clearly in this particular goal when it comes to social emotional and respect for all people, as well as the substance-free piece. But something that we're working on as a staff is a whole school collaborative building improvement effort, where the entire staff came up with 13 different topics that they wanted to work on and develop and improve in the school. And we do what we call community brainstorms at almost every faculty meeting now, where the staff literally, we look at like where we are in a program. So for example, the behavioral program or phone use in the middle school. This is where our new phone policy came from, or our phone practices came from. We decided on it as a staff, which is nice because then everyone is understanding it and is bringing it out and is pushing it out to the students. So, yeah, we have several areas that we're working on. We choose 3 as a priority each month and move from there. So that's been working really well. And then some of the things that we do for our students, and our students are doing a wonderful job with, are things like the Thanksgiving food drive and the giving tree. Families, thank you, Grafton Families, for the support you gave us with the giving tree. We're participating in the Arts in the Valley event, so students that are artistic have an opportunity to have materials displayed there. We are once again having our Holocaust survivor, Mrs. Janet Applefield, return to present to our 7th graders this spring as well. And this will be the 9th year that Mrs. Laura Deschaines conducts the Open Hearts and Minds fundraiser. This year we'll be raising funds for food. we've raised funds for a number of different things. The last couple of years, the funds have gone to water. So we're continuing to work on Open Hearts and Minds. And a little bit more detail, good to go. Oh, the previous one. So the variety of after-school activities is really nice. I did add in interscholastic sports, is also a piece in here as well. What's nice about the after-school clubs is that they're often driven by student interest. So some offerings, they change from year to year. So it can be an adult deciding to try something out and see if there's interest. But some of them, for example, Cricket Club, came from a group of students, and it is a huge hit. About 20 students attend that. So what I calculated in looking at the attendance is that over 2/3 of our students attend after-school activities, which is just lovely. So, for example, our Math Counts has about 20 students in it. Our ski clubs, 91 students, which is wonderful. Cooking club was so big that Mr. Covert had to split it into 2 parts, so it's alternating weeks, and there are a total of 42 students in it. And engineering club, like 23 students. So it's, good numbers are attending our clubs, which is nice because the students get to see the teachers in a different role as a human being and helping them, and it's something that's of interest to them as well. Dungeons and Dragons Club, we still have students from the high school coming down to attend that with the middle schoolers as well. And then we have a group of 10 8th graders attending the Connections Conference, which is a social justice conference in Sutton, at Sutton High School. And this will be the 3rd year that our school has participated. And Grafton High School participates as well and sends a group of students. And then I'd like to give a shout out to Genevieve Lee. Congratulations. She's our 2023 Project 351 ambassador. And Genevieve just went on January 14th for the day to the State House, where it was the initial, 351 ambassadors, one from each district. And now, over the net, between now and actually tomorrow and February 14th, she will have 4, what did they call it? Service Leadership Academies that she'll attend online prior to the kickoff of a large service learning project. So this is a year-long program, and she was nominated. There were a few students nominated by the teachers, and Genevieve was selected because of her efforts in the district and in the community, and she's a silent leader and a really good person. So we're happy to have her representing us at the state level. Any questions?
All right. Questions from the committee? Amy?
Laura was first.
Okay.
It's whatever. doesn't
I've got to have eyes that go like
No,
this, so I can see
fine.
both of you guys
I can
racing
also,
every single meeting.
Also wait. for that race.
Why don't you go first?
I'm happy to go whenever. Thank you for that presentation. It's so nice to hear all the wonderful things going on at GMS. I had a quick question about the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 services. How are they determined? Is it teacher, is it student? And then who's instructing them when they get to the library?
Sure, it's the library media clerk is actually a certified teacher.
Okay.
And so she is instructing them when they're there. She works in collaboration with each of the classroom teachers. So, she will communicate with the teachers. They have a system of documents that are, Google Docs that are online. So the teachers will talk to her and say, this is what this particular student needs. And because of the size of the group, they're able to do that. And then each group of 6 students, they go at different times during the day. So they're not all together. So it's really, literally, she's working with 6 students at a time.
But they're being pulled out of their related arts for a
Yes,
6-week
and that's,
period.
so this is an agreement, so basically, when we have criteria for students that are able, that fit this criteria.
Yeah.
And when they do, we communicate with the families, and we have a letter prepared. That
Gotcha.
we communicate with the families, and then we'll answer any questions that they may have. It may be a teacher that does it, or I do it, or Mrs. Martellio does it. And so we make sure that we have, like, they're making a choice as to whether they feel that their child could use this 6 weeks of some more intensive academics and then move back into related arts.
Okay.
And with us, it's nice because we have enrichment and related arts, so, and band and chorus, so the
Right.
student is still getting 2 things per day versus,
Gotcha. And then they're getting that one on, kind of that small group extra,
they are.
Extra
So that's,
instruction.
that's tier 2.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Amy?
I had a similar question, but I'll go with this one. How are the tardies and absenteeism this year?
We definitely have an increase. I pulled a report that indicated that we had about 2,800 absences last year by the end of the year. I think it was, I want to say it was 2,888. And this year, at this point, we have 2,150. So the absences have increased. We've been working hard to communicate with families and try to help out wherever we can. But, I mean, we're still contending with illnesses, and I think there's a lot of fallout from the pandemic, anxieties.
So one of the things we are doing is we're meeting monthly and we're reviewing students. You know, we kind of start at, we get a report, and it's myself, the school counselor, the school psychologist, the attendance clerk, and the nurse. And we go through, you know, we start with, okay, let's just throw a number out there. Anybody that has more than 15, how many are there? And we'll highlight them, and then we'll go through them. You know, do we have excuses, you know, which are excused absences, which aren't excused absences? Did the student take, we have a handful of students that go away for 3 or 4 weeks back to wherever. You know, we've had some go to Brazil or India or what have you. So, you know, do we know where this student was for, you know, some of these absences, you know, and then we reach out. So I have a series of letters that I will send home. The first time around, I don't quote me because I don't know exactly, but I want to say I sent home 18, and then out of those 18, only 5 needed a second letter the second time around. Each one of those 5 we have a plan for. You know, we know why the absence is a problem, and we're trying to work one-on-one individually with those families. The second time around, you know, I had to send more of the kind of first letter, you know, and then we'll look again, you know, the next month and say, okay, has it improved? Has it not improved? You know, some of these families will reach right out and say, we're so sorry, this is what's going on, this is why our children are absent. We've gotten some doctor's letters for those reasons. But as Ms. Krapaska said, I think, you know, there is kind of a global issue. I think it's not just Grafton Middle School. You know, it was tough. Some of these kiddos, they were used to working and living and, you know, doing everything from home. And, you know, it is tough. Some of them really are struggling with the day-to-day, getting back into the swing of things the way they used to be. And so I think that's hard. But I do know at the district level, one of the things we're going to put together, and I shouldn't, maybe I'm pre-speaking, I don't know, Jay's
Go for it.
going like this. So we are going to put a committee together to kind of look into this in a deeper level. And what are some other schools doing, you know, because, you know, the traditional, I mean, what you can't. So to me, a student is out 10 days, you're not going to suspend them.
Right.
Because now they're going to be out more time. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult problem to try and tackle, but we're doing the best we can right now with the information that we have.
I asked not because I didn't think you were doing a great job. I was just curious, because I've heard from a principal in another building that it's a problem, and I knew that, but I wanted to see if it was still an issue for you guys, because I honestly hadn't heard.
Yeah.
But I know other districts, I hear it all the time, it's a real problem. I mean, how do you make kids who are anxious and depressed get out of bed in the morning before dawn?
Right.
That's like, I'm a mom, I've got a kid that, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard for me
And-
some days to get out of bed before dawn,
Yeah,
so
and we
I
get
definitely
that,
get it.
You know, so we're trying to, we've used Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services for some of these families to try and get them some support in that regard. You know, our school counselor, Christina Morazzo, has been phenomenal with working with families one-on-one to try and, integrate those students back into the classroom. If they've had an extended absence and are very anxious about coming back and having all this makeup work. The teachers have been great about prioritizing work for students. So we're definitely tackling it, and we know that it's there, and we're trying to do the best for the kids that we can.
This is where the student support team meetings come in handy
Yeah,
too,
for
every
sure.
2 weeks, because these are the communications that we have.
Mm-hmm.
We discuss the students and we say, okay, who's on first? Okay, I'll call the parent and we'll make this plan, and we'll have the parent in and meet and make a plan as to what services we can offer them and help them. And we help them in all sorts of different ways, from going to the home to introducing them to one of our Tier 3 services, the Lighthouse Program, which has a transition program within it, where students who have been out for a length of time and do need some help getting back in can start there. And we have a special education teacher that helps the students integrate back into their classrooms over time. We've had a lot of
And it's not a
success.
one-size-fits-all type of situation. Everybody's got
Very
their own
different.
individual,
For sure.
Yes.
it's not kids cutting school to go to Duncan. It's,
Right.
you know.
I mean, we just had a student that had come back from, I want to say, 4 or 5 weeks of absence and started with classroom. And we said, all right, we'll see how it goes for a few days. And by Friday, they were doing
Fine.
really well and didn't need to go into the Lighthouse
Oh, wow.
program for that transition. So that was a huge success story. But, that's not everybody.
Right.
And so we just try to determine kind of where that is. And I do think it's important to note that it's not just me, it's not just Ms. Krapaska, but it's a team approach, and there's
Yes.
different people that are kind of taking the helm. So that one student that I mentioned, that was, a success story, that was a teacher that said, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and we'll see, and I'll keep a really close eye on it. And then by Friday, it was, nope, he's good to go, like, he's all set, he's doing well, we've got his priority lists, and he's doing fine. So that was great.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So sorry, I'm jumping in because I'm following up on what Amy asked, but I'm hearing a lot about kids who are experiencing extended absences or maybe have social anxiety issues that are keeping them out of the classroom. But what are you seeing an uptick also in just the number of kids? Because we're, especially after COVID, we're encouraging kids, if you feel sick, stay home. Whereas I would think, before, it'd be more likely that parents would send kids to school with a sniffle or a cough or something. And now I would think they're keeping them home a lot more often. So are you seeing that as well, where
That could
you have
be
a
a-
lot more occasional absences with kids who are staying home for those reasons as well?
I think that's a component of it, but I don't think it's a very large component of it. I think people are beginning to send their children back to school with the sniffles and.
Okay, maybe too much, or maybe are they getting too bold in that?
Right, we urge not to, but,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's a big, we do see, based on the students that we're working with, that it really is around anxiety and struggling to get back into a routine of school.
Okay.
But it is helpful. When I have sent some of those letters and heard back from some of those parents about those kinds of situations where, they had this illness or that illness for these 3 or 4 days and those 3 or 4 days. And we just document that and, keep note of that. And as long as the absences don't continue on that path, then we know that I'm sure that was the case. And we don't kind of, I don't want to say worry, but we don't kind of worry about those
Yeah.
students because they're doing okay. And
Sometimes
yes,
kids
it
just
does
get
happen.
sick a lot. They
Yeah.
just get a lot of colds, or
We
For
also
sure,
have-
and that's,
They're not
that's
supposed to-
exactly. Yep.
We also have a relationship with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, which Christine mentioned. And we have an intern that comes into our school once a week and meets with up to 8 students. And we can send our students to that organization so that parents can be guided to find resources for their children.
I have a few more questions, but
No,
Priscilla, did- or
my
any-
question was answered. so.
okay. Anyone else have anything else
good.
before I?
think.
Okay. I have 2 questions. One is, you mentioned the Blackstone Valley STEM Conference at Tufts, the GMS Ambassador Program, and then the Connections Conference. I was wondering, for those types of things, with the 351 Ambassador Program, you kind of touched on it, but for some of those other programs, how are the kids selected? Is it the same sort of process where teachers are trying to identify kids that kind of they think would fit in, or before I say too much, jump in and
It is,
if
it
you
is
could
varied,
explain
and
how
it
they're
does
chosen.
depend on on what the program is. So for example, the STEM field trip to St. Gobain, the students had an opportunity, it was described to them in morning announcements that it was a STEM conference, STEM field trip, this is what you would see, this is what you would engage in for an activity when you're there. And the students were able to write a paragraph to me and apply to attend. So that's how, and we were able to send almost every student that wrote the paragraphs. We are limited on the number of students. We end up going with another school. They can only take up to 60 students. So we were limited, but we actually ended up taking some of their spots. So we ended up having more students from Grafton Middle School go than the other school. But yeah, so the students actually signed up for it.
Okay, so they get a chance
And
to.
then the Connections Conference is that the social studies, civics teachers mention it in their classes, and students, that they determine like which students are interested, and do they have an interest in social justice.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the ambassadors, those are nominated by teachers once a month, by the team of teachers, and it's dependent on what that theme is. So it's respect, or whether it's care and kindness, and there's been quite a variety of students that have been chosen, and they see, so we keep track in a Google Doc of who has already been chosen, and so they're encouraged to try and choose different students. There have been a couple, this month in particular, I noticed that there's a few students coming with us that had come prior, but there's also the related arts teachers choose students, and then also their teams. So they may not have been chosen by, say, like the 8 green team. They may have been chosen by a different team the last time around. But it's quite a number of kids. I want to say we bring 15. Is it 15 or 15 to 20 per time?
Yeah, 15 to 20.
So
great.
it's quite a number of kids each month.
And thank you. And then my last question is, it sounds like you're doing an amazing job there at Grafton Middle School, but if you could name something, a resource or a position at your school that would make things, that would be ideal for your work, something that you would love to have, maybe not too far-fetched, but just, kind of your ideal of what you would like to see in, another position, some kind of resource at the Grafton Middle School. Do you have any ideas or something that you think about that you would?
Well, my immediate reaction would be an adjustment counselor. That would be my immediate reaction.
Yep.
Because of the number of students that do need help. And we do have one adjustment counselor and one school psychologist, and then we have an adjustment counselor in our Lighthouse program. But what we don't have is the counselor that would work with kids on academics, checking grades, that we don't have. That would be,
I would agree with that.
that's a dream
Okay.
for me.
Thank you. Okay, any other
The
questions?
first thing that popped into my head was air conditioning.
Oh,
I know the teachers would love that.
coming.
well, we're working on that, yeah.
I know it's coming. It's coming. Can you make it come faster?
We'll have consistent heat and everything.
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't
With
that be
heat,
nice?
Air conditioning.
We work very hard on that, so it is coming.
Yeah,
Done.
we're very.
All right, check.
Done. Thank you.
Good job.
Soon. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much
Thank
for
you both.
having
Great
us.
to see you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next let's see, what time is it? A little bit before 8. 2023-24 calendar. Very popular topic.
Oh, yeah. So the last time that I presented on this, at the last meeting, it was brought up, or we realized that the election day this coming year, we didn't actually have to hold it for election day because we weren't going to have elections. So that led to a discussion about what to do, where to place the parent conference day. It was decided that I would go back, ask the principals and assistant principals to basically survey staff and get a sense of what they'd like to see happen. About 80% of the staff, maybe a little more, preferred to have the conference day on that 9th, with the evening of the 8th for evening conferences. The following day would be the 10th, so the students get that 4-day break. This, I think, was North Street, but some of the schools, like South Grafton, I want to say was like 96% to 4% in favor of the 9th. So if we go with the 9th, this is what the calendar would look like. I didn't make any changes other than moving that November 7th parent conference day to the 9th.
Okay. And that was the main thing that we were talking about last time.
Yeah.
Any other discussion from the committee regarding this calendar? Laura?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Grafton Public Schools 2023-2024 calendar that was updated on January 18th, 2023. as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
All right, there you go.
We will post that online tomorrow morning.
We'll have some happy Facebook friends.
Yeah. That's an
Plan your,
oxymoron.
That's our goal.
can plan
Yeah,
those
right.
vacations. All right. All right, I'm debating, I'm thinking about, we could get into the budget, or we could have our students give their report now, so that they can sneak out in the middle of the, so that you guys can get home.
We get out early.
Do you mind,
tomorrow.
Jay?
Not at all.
So that way, you guys don't have to leave right after your report, but then you can go at your will in case this discussion goes longer than we expect.
There's honestly not too much to report, but semester 1 is ending this Thursday, so grades will be closing soon, and the second semester's classes will be starting on Friday. Student council is actually going on a conference in March, like a 3-day trip to Hyannis, where they will be doing workshops and they will be listening to lectures and also be meeting people from all around the states who are also in student council from other schools. It's a really great opportunity to kind of get involved in the school and meet others from around the state who are also interested in similar things like that. We're also like holding a polar plunge fundraiser, so the goal is like $100 per student, and basically you wear a silly costume and you jump into freezing cold water
In, like, and
in the water.
In the beach.
Yeah, where?
where?
Hyannis.
At Hyannis. Oh, it's part
Oh.
of the conference.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's part of
okay.
the conference. Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness. Okay,
But
thought you were jumping into Lake
sorry.
Ripple.
That's
I
Okay,
thought too.
Sorry for any
okay.
Are you both doing it?
I am.
All right, Maroska, hit me up.
I got you. No worries. We're also holding a Candygram sale later in February for Valentine's Day. You go, Glen Coco. I remember that one. Don't worry.
Ding, ding.
Check.
Oh, February 16th, GHS presentation for 8th grade parents.
And that's about it.
Okay,
Nice.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great
All right,
job.
again, you guys are welcome to stay. Don't want to kick you out, but feel free to secretly sneak out if you need to. I know it's end of the semester, so it's a home stretch, right? All right.
I can see tomorrow.
Second favorite topic, the fiscal year 24 budget.
All right. Since we last talked about the budget on the 10th, we released the preliminary budget book online on the GPS website, and also had that meeting with the town administrator that I think was the day or two after the last meeting. In a very general sense, the town administrator and I were able to get on the same page in terms of general approach towards or around the FY24 budget. We are going to use like the base numbers, really conservative numbers in terms of what was forecasted to be brought in terms of town revenue and state funding. So we're using all the numbers that are in the book right now are not worst case scenario. There's always a worst case than what we have, but this is we would be shocked if we received less than what we're planning for. There's a very good chance that we're going to receive more than we're planning for. And that would be a wonderful thing, and we'd be happy to take that on if we encounter that as we go forward. But for the purpose of this discussion and the book as it stands now, I just want to frame it in terms of that collaborative approach. To bring you back, just do a quick review. When we were building the initial level service budget, we had 6 central cost drivers. We're 85% staffing, so contractual increases is always going to be our biggest. 2% increase for all of our bargaining units, about $1 million in terms of impact for FY24. We, out of the gates, kept our COVID level nursing. That were 4 different positions. So we had them entirely built into FY24. We added a new position that we've been looking at for a while. That's that full-time adjustment counselor split between North Grafton and South Grafton Elementary. The last 3, technology, hardware, software, contracted services. That increase isn't particularly unusual in the world of technology, especially as we're expanding our one-to-one in the district. Transportation and tuition is a big one across the board, certainly in Grafton, but across the state. There's a minimum increase of our out-of-district tuitions of 14%. So a lot of them are going to be above 14%, and we're seeing a corresponding increase in the transportation costs associated with those runs. The smaller buses, vans, et cetera, the costs are skyrocketing. So we're looking at an increase, same number of students, of about 223,000 for next year. And then the final piece in terms of large driver was maintenance. We had hoped to increase our maintenance funding so that we could do a better job getting at the smaller projects. That anything under 10,000 is not included in the capital plan. So those are the projects that a principal wouldn't have in his or her funding for the school. They don't kind of fit anywhere. So we've been for years trying to get at those projects. We have developed, I think I told you at the last meeting, kind of a mid-level capital plan for the projects that aren't, $300, but they're not over 10,000. A lot of them are around plumbing issues. That's always a thing, is plumbing. We could have $1 million tomorrow just for plumbing, and we would use it all exceptionally well. So in total, I'll skip here, that level service need right out of the gates was $44.2 million. Going back to the number that was forecasted when we did the forecasting with the town over the summer, was that the schools would receive a little over $43.4 million for FY24. And if all of the pieces stayed the same and we didn't have unexpected costs as a town, that would get us through, I think it was FY26, in pretty good shape in terms of using override funds. So to get to that forecasted number, we need to decrease that level service initial budget by $815,000. To get to that $815,000, what I'm recommending are the following. These, for the most part, they don't impact individuals. Nursing would be potentially the exception to that. We do have some nursing retirements taking place this year, so the hope would be that we've got some really great people in our nursing positions and staffing across the board, that if we were to decrease, we'd be able to move individuals so nobody would actually be losing their actual livelihood. But NEASC, as you know, about 3 months ago, we presented to NEASC and asked for their visit to be pushed out a year just to give us some breathing room. I'm thrilled that we did it. It was successful. So the monies that we had for their visit, we can push off for another year. That's the easiest one. That's $10,000. Each year we build into the budget about $80,000 for a margin to to be used for paraprofessionals. That's not much of a margin in a $44 million budget, I can promise you that. But if somebody moves in tomorrow and he or she had a paraprofessional or didn't, and we find needs a paraprofessional, we don't have a fund for that. We don't have, that magic drawer that's got monies for a paraprofessional or paraprofessionals. And of course, this happens throughout the year. We've been, I guess, lucky in that we've been, as you know, working very hard at trying to maximize the efficiency in terms of the paraprofessionals we have. So our number every year has decreased, and we're able to use that margin that's created for when somebody moves in. So we would, if we need to get to that 815, we would take 50,000 from that 80,000, leaving 30 available with the assumption that we're going to further reduce the number of paraprofessionals that we have moving forward. So based on the way things are trending, we should be okay, but that's where that money's coming from. I would remove $70,000 from what I just talked about a minute ago was the increase in maintenance to meet the facility needs. I would backfill that with monies from our facility rental revolver. So as we rent our facilities over the years, we bring in monies and we put those back into facilities. That would leave us, if we use 70,000 in addition from that fund, about 51,000 would be left over in that revolving account. PD, I don't think, we can reduce by 20,000. We don't believe we're going to see an actual negative impact in terms of staffing or supplies or the quality of PD that we can provide. There are some entitlement grants that we receive automatically that we know we've got some margin and we can cover that 20,000 through those grants. With the nursing, as a placeholder, I put the elimination of our .8 float nurse position. In the end, that if we make this reduction, we just need to get to about that 60,000. So it could be the 2 LPN positions, for example. We'd have some options there, but 1 out of the 4 positions that were added with COVID monies, we would move away from and retain the other 3. We would take off the table that new counseling position requested at pre-K through 1. We're going to have a natural decrease in enrollment going into first grade next year at North Grafton Elementary, and we'll be able to shift one of our first grade teachers into an existing open position for FY24, so the 23-24 school year. So that we would do regardless. I would recommend that we increase the use of our transportation revolver fund. Again, funds that we bring in through bus fees that can only be used for transportation. That would leave in that fund about $65,000 next year. And then we would significantly increase our use of school choice revolving funds. That would be an additional $460,000, leaving us about $387,000 next year in our school choice fund. School choice has been a blessing in countless ways and has bailed us out, I can't tell you how many times. That's really, in terms of like a savings account, if you will, like if a server goes down, which has happened, and we need 100,000 literally like right away, that's where we go. So anything less than 387, 400 in school choice would worry me.
What are we bringing annually on that?
About 700,000.
So this is next year's money, not this year's money.
Correct, yeah. So that brings us to a total of 815,000 if we did this, and obviously none of this is set in stone and these numbers aren't going to be exact, but you get the general idea in terms of the approach I would recommend. The resulting problem, if we do this, any way you slice it, looking at it with that very conservative lens again, this is without getting additional town or state monies, that would leave us with about 300,000 townwide in levy capacity, So basically, the override funds, if you will, would be for FY '25 in the bank, if you will, are about 300,000. In talking with Evan, he's very comfortable with us moving, if we can, reducing that initial ask, get to the 43.4 million. And then he's good with that at this point. As a very smart practice, if we assume that those conservative numbers stay true and we don't get additional funds, we talked about what would it take on the municipal side and on the school side to get to $1 million in levy capacity. So if we were to build an additional 650,000, 700,000 in levy capacity by further reducing the FY24 amount, what would that look like is the exercise. So with that, this was just last week that we had the meeting. We're already incredibly lean, and let me just go back to that. I'm sure I'm gonna have to go back a few times. This wasn't a directive from Evan to cut an additional 427. It's FY24, we can actually get through. FY25 looks sketchy if the numbers if they don't improve. So what can we do proactively just in case those numbers don't improve? We're already, and he knows this, very super efficient. That's why we can do so much with comparatively so little. Kristen Gasper is focused this week and next, working with the building principals and staff, taking a look at all school schedules, class sizes, staff schedules, just looking to maximize efficiencies even further. There's a very good chance we're not going to come back with a heck of a lot, but we might. It's not a bad exercise to go through. But this isn't uncommon for us. I feel like every year we push to see how we can maximize what resources we have. We're also doing that with non-personal spending, in particular around apps and software. This is definitely a very good practice that we need to do on a regular basis, especially as there's just more technology. There's just more use of apps. There's more tech. And we tend to, some teachers will want an app to do one thing, and that's great, but that's 1,000 here, you have 1,000 there. It does add up. So we really need to take a look at what we have, what's being used, and what those apps and what that software is actually producing. So that's ongoing, and again, that won't be a one-time thing. We need to do that on a regular basis. And I think, and this, lastly, capital, I wanted to touch on, Amy. I know you went to, I think I've got the numbers right. I think this is the most, we've bounced back and forth with the plumbing HVAC number, but I'm expecting that we're going to be at 766. I believe at the last meeting, if not the meeting before that, we temporarily thought we'd be just over $1 million, which was wonderful. If we had an additional 250,000, we would put that towards ADA compliance, and really focus on bathrooms in particular, which obviously ties to plumbing. That was kind of a win-win. So if we do get any additional capital monies, that's where we would spend them.
There is still 100,000 that's earmarked for ADA
Oh, good.
in the budget he presented to FinCom.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet, but,
It's labeled GHS, but he explained to FinCom that that's just for tracking purposes, and,
Okay.
we'll figure out where it actually needs to get spent based on priority. Basically, the same thing
Great.
I said at CIPC.
Yep.
It'll get spent where it needs to be spent based on the students we have and their needs, and, we get that.
Okay.
So it would go to 866, but,
okay,
I mean, it also could
Yeah,
go
we'll take
down,
it.
so,
sure.
good times.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Yep.
So much to say. Okay.
You have so much to say.
I do, but I want to hear from everyone else first.
Graciela,
You're calling me out already?
I apologize to the chair.
That's okay. I was gonna
Yes.
So I don't have a solution, obviously, and I'm sure you've thought about every possible choice and so I guess solution, but I'm a little bit concerned about the cutting the counseling position requested for pre-K 1, not only because it is what I see day in and day out, but we heard today how much our students are hurting as far as social emotional and the services that they're receiving in the schools. And we also heard last week how much that has helped the upper elementaries in managing students and helping them succeed social emotionally. So, like I said, I don't have any solutions. I don't have no ideas how to make that better, but it's just one of the areas that I see being proposed and then cut.
Sure.
That knowing how the state of our students are, not only here but universally, concerns me.
Yeah, Amy.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. You know, nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to go through and make these tough decisions, but, you know, we're asking for one position. And, you know, this override was for the schools primarily. And I feel like, you know, we're not asking for something we don't need. We're already at bare bones level service below that. And I feel rather strongly that we should go back and say, this is a position that we really need, because we're going to have problems and expenses down the line if we can't get a handle on the kids' mental health now. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm saying it more for the parents watching. You know, I was not surprised that we had to do reductions. I am disappointed. And I'm really hopeful that we can find something else, anything else. Some software that we can put off for a year, or like, I don't know. But it just feels wrong to take this out when we need it so badly.
Laura, anything before I?
Go ahead, I can
So,
still thinking my thoughts.
yeah, I guess I have a lot to say about this. I agree with everything that Graciela and Amy just said. I think the counseling position, I'd say, is at the top of the list. But there's the rest of these items are also things that are very important, that we need very much. I mean, I'm also worried about the maintenance. I'm worried about the custodian. The custodians are, when I speak to them, they're overwhelmed. They're not able to get to things like cleaning the bathrooms enough, that, you know, as much as they would like to. You know, I go into some of the schools and those bathrooms stink because they're overwhelmed. They're trying to keep up with things, but it just, the idea that we're saying, okay, we need $83,000 to backfill some of this, or to provide some of this custodial work, and then we're saying, no, we really don't need it. I think that's a very important need. I think all of these things are very important. I mean, you talked about, and I completely appreciate your efforts to look at the revolver funds, the school choice revolver fund and the transportation revolver fund, but you also mentioned emergencies that happen, things that come up during the year, and that those funds are needed, that are used for those things. I think we had documentation earlier that said, and correct me if I'm wrong or if this is out of date, but the school choice funds are used for technology needs. You mentioned that earlier, salaries that for needs that come up, and also AP program. I don't know if that's going to affect the AP program that we have, if we're going to need to cut back on some help with that. But my first concern is cutting down to the forecasted amount. I mean, you mentioned the $44 million was level service funding. And when we were seeking the $2.8 million that we got that was to be allocated for the schools in the override, We said this is for level service funding. This is to keep up with what we have going on. And yes, there's an increase year after year because things get more expensive, and that's why that happens. But now we're going from level service, which to pay for that is 44 million, and we're going back to an amount that was forecasted, and we've had some other things that have come into play since that forecast this summer that have increased the cost to 40 million to provide that level service. I hate the idea of going back because because that number was forecasted. I'm hearing, I watched the finance committee meeting that was held on January 18th, and looking at the budget that was coming from the town, the other things that they were looking at. They're talking about adding police officers. So because they have a goal of getting to 25 police officers by a certain time. So we're talking about eliminating a float nurse position, eliminating a position that we need in the schools so that we can hire more police officers. Is that what we need to spend our money on in this town? I don't think so. I don't think we need more cops. I think we need what?
Oh, keep going. I just put in my hand up. I think
I think we need to look at, I'd like to get more information about the entire budget, and I think I have some questions for Evan as well, as far as, we're offering to make cuts, our cuts coming from the other side of things. Because I'm not seeing that. I went through it, watched the meeting, I saw certain increases that they were having. There were some efficiencies that they were finding. There was another line item, which was the insurance costs, which were an increase that was significant. And Evan mentioned that there were efforts underway to try to work with Strategic Health Group to try to reduce those costs. So if during this process, I guess I'm worried about getting too far in the process and we're sticking with this 43 million number because that's what was forecasted, and we're trying to do our best to play nice with the town and work with that number. But if things come back and he is able to get a lower number for health insurance, for example, is he going to come back to us and say, okay, now you guys can have your $500,000 back into your budget, or are they going to use it for something else? He talked about Chapter 70 funding, and I think the assumption was that that's going to be level. If that's increased, I want to make sure that that's coming to us, that's, if we look at, I had a sense that there was going to be a pull for more cuts. And we talked about that a little bit at our December 13th meeting, because we wanted to start with the number that we need, being wary that more was going to be asked of us if we went back and said, okay, we're going to cut 800,000 from the budget. And now I'm worried even more that is going to be asked of us. If that does, and it was sort of implied, I mean, if in the finance committee meeting, someone asked, are there going to be any more asks for cuts? And I think Evan said we're still talking about that. So it left open that option. If that happens, when you look at those numbers, when we were desperately needing this override in 2020, we were looking at an increase of 2.7 in fiscal year 24 over fiscal year 23. And we looked at that and talked about how devastating that would be if it was only 2.7% increase. If we cut another $400,000 from our budget, our increase is 2.6%. So basically we take out from our budget the money from the override in doing that. And that's not only scares me and looking at what the effects would be on the school system, but it's just not fair either. I'd like to have a lot more information about, and I know it's still a little bit early, but I don't want us to get too far down the road where this 43 million number, we're kind of accepting that this is okay. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's enough. And I think the other side of the entire town budget, I think there's room there to help fund some of these things that we really do need, that we need to be able to maintain those level services. And I have more to say, but I've talked too long, so Laura.
Well, I just wanted to take a deep breath, and I think one thing that we should do is just get together with our friends. I don't like this going back to the side thing. I think we've worked huge gains to work together. We have a new TA who's come on. They're in a meeting right now talking about cutting over $500,000 in police, depending on that. So we don't know what's going on. I think it's best if we kind of take a step, and I don't know what's going on with that subcommittee, but if we want to get together with them, the 10 of us, or invite FinCom, we can do it at the library, so it's a little more easier to meet or something, and just talk together rather than, I would be livid if someone on the select board was saying we don't need teachers. So I don't want going back and forth, at least on my part. I think we've made good strides, and this is all new. This is coming at us later than we've expected. We're working with a different TA who budget's completely different. So it's digesting this, and it is concerning. We can look at what we can do on our end too. I mean, I don't want to bring it up because I'm so far, I'm not going to, but we can look at other things. Obviously everything on our budget's important, or we wouldn't have it on there. But we need to help try to figure out. This is Jay's best thinking, I'm guessing, on what isn't going to hurt the most. So I would recommend that I'm concerned about 2025. I think we need to look at this as a 2-year budget versus a 1-year budget, because I don't want to be sitting here next year with an even bigger cut, which is actually going to really impact kids directly. So I would want us to just caution on really sucking in all the override money. I am a little concerned on where things have been spent. I'm with you on the increase in the police. That wasn't in the initial override request. I know it was for fire, schools, and capital. So that's a question I would love to ask more, but they're not here, and it drives me nuts when committees do that to us. So I'll shut up, but I think my recommendation as chair, if you could reach out to Ms. Roy and see if we can get a meeting on the calendar for all of us to kind of meet, so it's not coming out of the blue for all of us. I would appreciate that. And not a guns blazing meeting, everybody's trying to get their soundbite in, but just really have a kind of a, hey, what's going on? We're in really tough times. When we had that override, we've done an amazing job without even knowing what that pandemic was gonna do for us. I mean, we were sitting there and so early that we didn't know. So I'd like to just catch up with them. We haven't really met with them.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's interesting about this is that, this is early in the whole process, right? FinCom is going to interview the individual departments, and they're going to grill them on their requests, and they're not necessarily going to grant all of those either, or recommend granting, I should say, because they're an advisory committee to the town administrator. So this budget could look a lot different in 6 weeks. I think that we need to figure out what our case is going to be and make it. But I agree. I think a meeting could not hurt. I think getting everybody in the room and basically saying, look, this is what it looks like to us. I agree with Laura about next year. I know we can't do a 2-year budget. That would just be, no. You'd have to put Anita on life support, I think, at this point to get that done. So, but I agree 100% with what you're saying. Next year is going to be far worse if we go to the well too much this year.
Okay.
And it stinks that that's where we're at. But, inflation has increased way more than we thought it would. Projections are, projections, and you can't predict a pandemic. Even in the middle of the pandemic, we couldn't predict how bad inflation was going to get. And that's really hurting us. So
I'd also like to chat with our friends at the state. So I know MASS has been reaching out. I reached out. I know MASC had their board meeting, so I reached out to my contact to see what's coming up there. But let's talk to Mike and Dave. I haven't seen them in a long time. I'd like to see some. We got a refund from the state last year because everybody, whatever, I don't quite know. That you know, I don't want to be having to knock on doors again when I know there's money in that state. So I'd love
Yep.
to talk to them and figure out what's going on. I know it's completely early on their end, obviously. I'm hopeful with the new governor who's public school friendly, might come out. I am a little still hopeful on the state, but if we could even just start there too, like, I want to get everything kind of going, because
Yeah.
it's always comes down to these like local things, and you know, it's upsetting, and I'm with all of you, like, it's really hard.
And I don't think that's a Hail Mary as much as it's been in the past. I mean, they
No.
were still they were talking about it today. There were some superintendents
Yeah.
at the DESI hearing today,
Yep.
talking about, you know, the way that we're spending the student accountability money, is that what? SOA?
Opportunity Act?
Student Opportunity Act, thank you. Just, you know, it's just not cutting it. And yeah, there's gonna be another increase, but it's just not, it's not where we need to
It
be.
doesn't have much,
It sounds good on paper when
Right.
the numbers that I sent Jay today, you know, it sounds great. It's increasing from X this to, you know, X million, and it sounds good, but that's not what we're gonna see.
right, this is what we're scheduled to see.
I mean, that's,
So,
Yeah,
again,
that's-
in a $44 million budget, a $77,000 increase, we'll take it, but it's
Yeah.
not a game changer. It's just not. But we're in for what it's worth, in very, very, very good company. Everybody is hurting. It's going to be incredibly impactful across the state if there isn't an increase in state funding. There's no doubt about it.
and with the sports betting that they've just put in, I mean, wouldn't we expect to see an increase?
Isn't that supposed to go to, and what about the millionaire's tax? Didn't that pass?
That
Wasn't that
passed
supposed to
too?
go to schools?
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't that supposed to go to schools?
Schools and transportation, I believe.
Show me the money.
So we'll see. Early February, I'm guessing we'll start to get some kind of indications from the state. We'll see. But it comes up every single day.
But I think the consensus maybe is that we don't want to lay down. We still want to hear, you know, but
Yeah.
I'd like to try to communicate and not go back to how it used to be, because
I agree.
I wasn't trying to go back to the way it used to be. I'm just saying, I'm responding to the budgets that I'm hearing, the line items that I'm hearing, the meetings that I'm watching, and what's in the budget at the current time. Yeah, obviously, I don't know what's going on in a meeting that I'm not attending right now. And I'd love to be able to talk about it. That's what I'm saying, is that I don't want this to be our final position, because I don't think it's enough. And I think that it needs to be communicated, that it needs to be understood what the impact of these reductions could be. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that we, you know, save it all this year so that we can have more override capacity next year, because what we're doing is, if we're holding back on hiring positions that we need now, then those kids miss out on the opportunity to have that adjustment counselor, for example. They lose a year with that service, and I think that makes a difference. So there is something that's lost in not doing it now. I don't think I obviously agree that we need to be efficient and look at cost savings wherever they can be. I can't imagine how you could squeeze more from the budget than it already has, especially with the $15,000 of deductions that have been offered to get us in line with below level service, but in line with the forecast. And the idea that, I mean, it was on a slide, so that makes it real for me, but the idea that there could be further cuts beyond that, I think I don't think we need to get adversarial, but I do think we need to state our case and provide that information and let everyone know what the impact on those cuts would be. Amy?
So thankfully, we don't have to vote on it tonight. But I guess the question is, we have, looking ahead, we have, the budget hearing is listed twice. I'm guessing the February 7th is wrong, and it's actually March 28th. It's listed twice on the
I
schedule.
actually thought
wouldn't
it
be
was in February.
March. I don't know how I
Does
messed that up, but it
F24.
would have to be in February.
Okay.
I say have to based on the charter, like we do have it's just,
I don't think
again, we're
gonna
in
be-
kind of good company, but our charter has a pretty aggressive pace for the budget and it precedes the numbers from the state.
Yeah, I think the March 28th was a
It's wrong. Okay.
mistype, yeah. It was
I
supposed
guess
to
my
be
question
next
is,
week.
I don't know that the 7th is realistic. I don't know that do we have to have that hearing before FinCom has their,
I don't believe so. I think,
Is there the
I'll have to
second
talk
week
to
of
Evan
February?
tomorrow, but I think we can have it in the second meeting in February,
okay.
if that's better.
Well, we can always have a hearing to get input. It's to
Yeah,
give us
right,
input.
right.
It's
It's
not-
Yeah, I
the-
guess
it's
I'm
the
thinking
vote
that, in my mind, it's tied to the vote,
Yeah.
because it's usually the same night, but you're
Right.
right, we
We
could
don't
decide
have
to
to
hold
do
the
it then.
hearing.
I mean, people could come with the same feedback that everybody's had.
That's fair.
And I can't believe I'm gonna quote him, but something that Peter Carlson always used to say. I know, but that, you know what, I never agreed with it. So again, I don't know why I'm gonna bring it up. It's not always final.
It's very
once you vote.
convincing, Laura.
I know,
It's
well.
not final.
the
I
vote-
never agreed with this, but I'm gonna say
I
it
know, but
anyway.
he did always say it, but the vote, it isn't final, like, the budget is very fluid. But I feel like, I mean, if we need to have the hearing, we can have the hearing, because it's for us to gather input. I always thought it was odd that we would vote after we got input anyway, because
Yeah.
you kind of want
Let us
time to
think about it a
digest
bit.
the input, not
Yeah.
all that input we've ever gotten. But if
Was that one
somebody,
year?
if
There was
somebody
some.
came with some, really great feedback, and then we're like scrambling, I always thought it'd be nice to have some more time. I need to think, I mean, I read over the slides, I've watched the meetings, but
Yeah.
I need to think too. I mean, I'm sure we can come up with,
Well, as of right now, it's our next meeting,
right.
so.
And so Liz, also, are you gonna take it as to set up a meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope, I can't do it next week, but if it has to happen without me, that's fine.
Yeah, I think there was talk of, I think Evan reaching out to us just to talk to, so we'll,
Yeah, or even if you
Coordinate
and the chairs
something.
get together, like, I don't need,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be to me like a 20-person get together, but
Yeah.
for me, it's just a communication of like meeting of the mind. So if it's you, Colleen, and Mark, and Evan and Jay getting
Yeah.
together, like, cool, I'm fine with that. Like,
I mean, we also have TRICOM too, which Leora is
right,
on. Are
Leora
you on it
and
as well?
Graciela.
Yep.
So
Do
you
you
guys
have a scheduled,
No.
you don't have a
maybe reach
meeting?
out. She,
That could be
Colleen's chair
another-
of that. Maybe reach out to Colleen. Like, all I want is just
Yeah.
some sort of communication, because it does seem there's a different style. There seems to be there was a lot of change. It sounds like things are slower than maybe we need them to be, and I think we just need to communicate differently.
Yeah.
More.
I think
Or
to-
more.
having our position though, I think, is key to that
100%.
communication too.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think,
Yeah, we haven't met with FinCom yet.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's heard from us. We haven't, our budget has just been sort of presented tonight.
yeah,
So we haven't had a chance yet, but it would be great to, hey, these are what we're thinking, let's be creative, maybe, 60,000 isn't a ton to come up
yeah.
with. I think we could probably save that. I know you're concerned about other things, and we can get there too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would just,
If we get, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but if
God,
we get
no.
nothing else, I mean, I agree with everything you said. But if it's that tight and we can get nothing else, that keeps me up at night. Mental health keeps me up at night. I'm sure it keeps you up at night. And I agree with what you said about, they missed that year. That's a
Yeah.
crucial year.
Yeah.
And, these kids, they need it, they deserve it. It's one position. I feel like there's gotta be There's gotta be something, and I think,
I'll
I think
find
we can make
something,
that case to
come back.
FinCom.
But I think, well, go ahead, Laura.
I'm sorry. Can I just ask Jay a question? So I know you went through this and worked really hard. So can I just ask, I know you wouldn't have cut that position if
Yeah.
it was like, because I know what things keep you up at night as well, and I know that is probably one of them. So we all agree mental health is important. So are there things in place, like what, can you explain why maybe it's not, I don't know. I don't want us to,
Why you added that to the,
Can I just
I
be
can
clear?
what
certainly,
you're trying to
I
ask.
can certainly add it back.
Well, can I just be clear, but
But
what I'm
something else
asking?
has to come off. I mean, we gotta get to 8:15.
Right, I
anyway
understand that.
You look at it.
Right,
And I
right.
can do it in ways
it's all
that
about prioritization.
necessarily seen, but I know behind the scenes.
I think we might need to, maybe you're gonna say what I was thinking.
I'm not, can you put it back where the cuts were?
Yeah.
I know that you said you'd go to 8:15, and that's what you told Evan.
Yeah.
I don't care about getting to 8:15.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm saying, add the 60 back,
okay.
this is what we can do, let's see what they can do. Let's see what they come back with. Because I feel like it's not a lot in a, how many $1 million budget again, Jay?
About 44.
That's just
60,000 is not a lot,
Us, though.
and we're not asking for a position we don't need. We need it. We have to prioritize mental health, period.
Yeah, the total budget is 74.
That's how I feel. I don't mean to speak for the committee, but that's what I was getting at, and I apologize if I was not
No.
clear. I think Jay's done an excellent job.
Yeah.
I think he's dug up, I don't think any of these things are nice to haves, other than the ask. We don't need that.
Yeah.
But,
Even I could probably pay for that.
well, I feel like the state should pay for it, but that's what I'm thinking, and I don't want your relationship with Evan to suffer from that, but it's the committee, I think, if we get to that point, it's the committee saying, this is what we want.
Yeah, and I think it's not just us. I think there were others in the finance committee meeting, for example, who raised that as a concern. So it's not like we're just going and raising a totally unique concern here. But yeah, Amy, I agree with you. That's what I was thinking when I was saying I don't want to cut this. It was not to give you direction to go back and find other cuts, because I know that you spent, like everyone has said, you spent so much time to figure out that these were the things that, if we absolutely had to, that, that we could make this happen. I just, I think we need to talk it over and with the other powers that be and figure out another way.
Okay, so
I hope
where-
we can figure out another
Where
way.
did we end? So is it going to be the
Yeah.
TRICOM committee? You'll reach out to Colleen?
The first and only meeting that we've had was back in August.
Okay, that's disappointing. That is not,
Oh.
not on your end. If it's okay, I would like to ask that Jay be CC'd and invited, because I don't think he was invited to that August. And I'm only passionate about this because this was my baby, so that's why I'm saying it's disappointing, because I have this vision that has just not come to pass. And I know you can bring it. So maybe I'm sorry, Liz, or, okay.
I think that's
Is that a good, because that's what we have set up. So those were supposed to be meeting, yeah. So just call, you're not, reach out to the chair and see if you guys can get a
No,
meeting.
sorry, it was September 21st.
Okay.
That's when we met.
And of course, if anyone has questions, they can reach out individually to anyone to ask those specific questions. If they need to ask Evan or something, to more specific information, they can do that individually too. And I guess, so what happens if, let's say we can't get this meeting before our next, I think we've already talked about moving our vote to the 28th.
I don't know that we necessarily.
You don't think,
I think,
well, it was sort of
When do we
implied.
have to vote?
I'm gonna have to ask Evan
I always
tomorrow.
thought it was yeah, I mean, the vote is
some
kind of
time.
symbolic anyway, it's gonna go to town
Correct.
meeting.
It's
We
showing
have until-
it's vote for our support.
We have
that
till
we're-
town meeting, really, to get our budget.
we can do
So,
the hearing early or late.
yeah, I
it
have
doesn't
turned
matter.
into Peter Carlson.
Yeah, but that's what we're putting forth, and that's what, if we
Right.
vote, then we're saying, the
Yes.
school committee supports this budget. So that's what
So if we're
gets-
not ready to support it yet, then we need to get it to a place where we're ready to,
Yeah.
to get a vote of 3 at least to
Yeah.
support it, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know with the, I don't have the charter memorized, but like whenever we need to have it vote.
I'll find
let's
out
push
tomorrow.
it. Let's push it. We can
Okay.
still have our hearing as we discussed.
Okay.
If people have concerns, we can take them into consideration.
So we can plan on moving our vote to February 28th. I'll double check and just make sure that, and if it doesn't work, then we'll keep it on the 7th. But I think,
What's gonna
if my
happen
memory's
to us.
correct about the timing that's required, I think that February 28th is
I
fine,
think you're right.
that it fits in.
Okay.
I think there was also, was mentioned, some early dates in March for meetings too. I heard wind of people reaching out, so if they were already talking about having something
We
early
usually go to
March.
FinCom early March
Yeah.
to present, so it probably would be good to have the vote before we
Yeah.
go to FinCom, so Jay's not presenting a budget that his committee
We're not
doesn't
sure about. Yeah.
support. So yeah, I guess those, but we can also talk to FinCom and say we need more time and please
Yeah.
push us somewhere else, like we can be,
Right,
let's get it right and
Yeah.
get what we need.
yeah,
Cool,
Thank you, Jay.
yeah, and thanks
Pleasure.
everyone.
thank you. Well, that was fun. All right, are
Exhausted.
we,
We have to do the rest of this, or can we just, you know?
are we ready to move on? Superintendent report? Do you have
All
one?
right.
Give some good, oh, no, we have this first.
Now,
This could be good.
the last meeting, Kristen and I presented the work that we're doing around bullying. I said that as you may recall, I set up a meeting with Worcester Health Alliance that got postponed for a week. So anyhow, today I'm going to just very briefly just give you a snapshot overview of the 2021 Youth Health Survey results. At the next meeting, I'll have more information, kind of a follow-up to the bullying discussion from the 10th, some more in-depth pieces about what we're doing, and talk more about the next steps that I'm going to kind of I'm going to touch on in the next few minutes. So just to review, every other year in grades 7 through 12, all of our students, or the great majority, participate in an anonymous electronic survey that's put together through the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance we've belonged to for years. So this, again, was from 2021. The results were received just a few days ago, and they were simply delayed because of COVID. And we met with the Worcester Health Alliance this past Thursday. It was last Thursday morning. And in past years, they typically sent one person out. This year, they've got a new director, kind of in response to the increase in all of the mental health issues, et cetera. They've kind of restructured, and it was awesome. They had 6 people came out and met with our team for a good chunk of the morning, and we went through the results. It was really great. I was excited about that discussion, but more excited about the services that they can now provide. It used to be purely informational on kind of our end. And they came out one year and did some kind of parent evening. I forget what the topic was, but it was pretty well attended, and it was good. But they have greatly increased their ability to work with us and our students and parents. So that was definitely exciting and new. So we have the results electronically. I'll make them available tomorrow online. I picked out just a few of the screenshots from the results, from anything that jumped out in terms of trends, good, bad, indifferent. I'll run through some of the high school pieces first and then the middle school. So at the high school, on the right-hand side, and these bars represent 2013, 2015, 2017, 2019, and 2021. That increase in screen time during a typical school day. I should say before we dive into these, what the Worcester Health Alliance doesn't do that some other organizations do across the state with similar survey activities is they'll pull it all together, and you could look at the Grafton basic Grafton results in comparison to other districts. Worcester Health Alliance doesn't do that for whatever reason. We talked about it and said it would be sure nice to have, because of course, anybody that comes up, even if we have one student that's dealing with addiction, bullying, violence, whatever, that's one too many. But I also certainly want to know if anything jumps out in their eyes in that they deal with this day in, day out in terms of a comparison between districts. So were they seeing anything in Grafton that was an anomaly in terms of increases or changes that they've seen throughout Central Mass? And there wasn't anything that jumped out to them. In past years, we've had things that have jumped out, be it vaping or whatever. So plenty of things to be concerned about, as we all are. That's not novel, but nothing that really jumped out as an anomaly for Grafton. So the screen time increase, they've seen obviously a steady increase in that both at the high school and middle school level, and now that one-to-ones are becoming more commonplace in elementary, they're seeing an increase there too. This is the one I didn't believe, and I told them that. On the far right, you'll see that results-wise, it showed that only 8% have ever tried a vape product. I found that hard to believe. They did see it's kind of a similar decrease. Ours was a little more pronounced than most districts. But I mean, vaping is something that's not, in my experience or our experience, dropping off that much. It's just not. Suicidal ideations among Grafton High participants. Saw the big jump in feeling sad or hopeless. Obviously, anything on this page is super concerning, but that jump is, and you'll see it in terms of the summary of the school and the district as a whole, in terms of stress and feelings of being like overwhelmed and anxiety are super high. Bullying, while stable, this is, you've experienced bullying at some point on school property or electronically. I was a little surprised that electronically wasn't even higher. That's something we're talking about on just about a daily basis, where that's 24/7. I say it all the time. I used to, if I got bullied in middle school, it was horrible, but at 2:30, you'd get on the bus or walk home, and you at least had a respite until the next day. But it's, that electronic social media machine is 24/7, and it's a real challenge, no question about it. So in summary for GHS, stress and anxiety are the two biggest concerns exhibited or voiced by students by a long shot. And that unfortunately is seen everywhere. It's still it doesn't mean we don't take it incredibly seriously and dive into it even more. We had talked about all of the things we've done, from moving away from finals and midterms to all these efforts. And that's great. We should take more of them, but obviously the numbers are just super concerning in terms of that stress and anxiety. At the middle school level, on the right-hand side, that's that increase in screen time. That's something that we're talking a lot about now. It's not uncommon for us to talk about, but we're in the process of developing a 5-year tech plan, and that's something that's coming up all the time. That real struggle as the products that can be accessed, the resources that can be accessed online are so awesome now. When we used to, or at least I'm probably the oldest, like the Oregon Trail was like, the kids wouldn't even, it's a joke. Like, it's so many of the resources are just so good and so rich.
No, Oregon Trail's cool now. It's back.
It's back.
It's back.
It's back.
It can't look the
you can
same.
still play
It
it.
can't look
It's
the
kind of the
same.
same.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
Same.
It's the
All right.
retro
It's
look.
emulator.
Yeah.
They love
No.
it.
You died of dysentery, Jay.
Yeah. But it's a real thing. Like, and it's not a struggle. You have one or the other, but how do we balance? How do we how do we work through that? Earlier, I talked about the apps, like, for a while it was, let's just bring it all in. But when do we actually pause and figure out what's working, what's not, what's most effective? So we're gonna have to force ourselves to make time to do that, and to have real discussions about it. Again, this is, the middle school, same idea here. The consideration of suicide, making an actual suicide plan ties into that increase in feeling sad or hopeless. It's real stuff. I don't know how to say it other than it's incredibly concerning, not just this year, but in the past as well. Again, the bullying on school property or experiencing it electronically, I would guess the electronically is even higher than that number represents, is what my gut tells me. And then in summary for the middle school, again, stress and anxiety, super high, not a huge surprise, but peer pressure and managing peer relationships at the middle level was third highest. And then, going through puberty, bullying, romantic relationships are all real struggles for a lot of our middle school students. So with all that, the discussion was great. Obviously, the rubber meets the road with what we do with it. So we are going through, we just received the results last week. We're going through the results with different groups of staff and administration at the middle school and the high school. I mentioned making the survey reports available online. The Central Mass Alliance is going to come in and work with myself and Kristen, and I'm sure with the building administration, to have focus groups. So at the middle school, we're prioritizing first that stress and anxiety and the bullying. So instead of just having the anonymous surveys, which are great, now it's diving in with actual groups of students to have discussions with trained professionals around what they're experiencing. What does that look like? When? How? Just to get a much better understanding of it, so that we can more effectively address the concerns. So we're doing that at the middle school, starting in a couple weeks. That will be, obviously, I'll update you, but that's really for February, which I think is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. And that same basic idea with that focus on stress and anxiety at the high school level with those focus groups run by professionals from the Health Alliance. The Wellness Committee, I think, has met twice now, has started to look at these results. We are going to have at least one member, if not two, from the Health Alliance serve on the Wellness Committee going forward, which will be fantastic. We have the option of, as we move forward, we're able to set up evenings like we did years ago, pre-pandemic, where we had, it was a particular topic. I don't remember what the topic was, but we held it at the high school, advertised for it, had parents come in, had a presentation, and then a really open discussion with some professionals from the Alliance, and that was great. So we would look to do that again, but we want to do it in a thoughtful way and kind of not do everything at once. It really served us well to pick a couple of topics and focus on them, as opposed to a general, one question about suicide, you jump to vaping. It was kind of all over the place. I've seen it done that way, and I don't think it's particularly effective. And then lastly, I talked about short term. We're looking at what we need in terms of programming for 2023, 24. In partnership with the Alliance, there are a few grants that we're pursuing. We already bring in speakers. We have existing programming. Do we want to shift that to be more focused on certain areas is what we need to figure out next. I think that's all I have.
Laura.
Thank you, Jay. Remember when you talked about the bullying programming, and if people could report their bullying, they could, and it would go through. Could there be a similar thing about a suicide concern, where
Yeah, of
if
course.
kids see something, say something?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that would be something helpful, but I think friends,
Can't hurt.
a lot of times they don't know what to do, and they don't want to be a snitch or a tattletale, but the plan having a suicide plan, that number's 10%.
Yeah.
Middle school, that, obviously, I know we're all super concerned, so I don't need to say that. But maybe just having like some sort of outlet if, hey, my friend's suffering,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, I'm afraid.
I'll talk with the Alliance too, because obviously we're one district out of hundreds, and
I do
this is what
know,
people have found,
that-
maybe even more, not generalized, but
I know that
like
that.
an antecedent with any concern about
Yeah.
a kid, you could report it anonymously.
Exactly. That app that we're looking at, and I think Evan's finally meeting with the company next week for ARPA, has that component in
Right.
it. But we haven't gotten there yet,
Yeah, well,
so.
we have the system set up.
since you
for the-
already
for
set up the
bullying. We're
system.
making it a lot more like user-friendly, so
Yeah.
we could do that at the same time.
Yeah, maybe it's like we kind of rebranded as not bullying, but as like as a
A concern.
hot
Yeah.
concern, you know, or
Yep.
something.
Okay, I'll look at
Emotional
that for sure.
wellness or
That's
something.
easy.
Good idea, Laura.
Yeah,
I have them once in a while.
Question.
yeah.
So, the physical activity aspect surprised me, and it didn't. And let me tell you why. So I've noticed in having now 2 kids make the transition from middle school to high school, that we see a dramatic drop in the involvement in sports in terms of percentage of students who are doing it. They try a sport, either they do youth sports until they get to middle school, and then they feel like they're not good enough and they give up and they don't even want to try out.
Sure.
Or they try out and they get cut. Or it's a new sport and there's just too many kids. You know, I don't really know what I want to ask here, but like, how can we keep more kids physically active? Like, encourage them more to try out for sports? Because I can't even tell you dozens of kids that I personally have contacted, had contact with, are like, I'm not going to make the team. It's not worth it. Some of them give up even earlier. Some of them give up before they get to 7th grade. They feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to make the middle school team. It's like, I thought it was no cut. I wonder if there's something we can do either through parents or through coaches to keep more of those kids. Because even if they're not playing every game, I feel like can't we, I mean, there's probably rules about how big JV rosters can be, but I just feel like there has to be a way to keep those kids engaged. I mean, as it is, they only get 3 phys ed classes in high school for a semester each. So we're not helping the physical activity aspect because for a whole year they get no gym unless they elect to take it, which I don't think we're actually going to allow them to do for a 4th because the classes were too full. We needed to make room. I just feel like we're not helping them, and I wonder if what we can do. And I know everybody's taxed and everybody's, you know, doing their best work and thinking outside the box every day. But I did notice the drop from this slide when you go back to GHS. There's a drop in physical activity. Well, maybe it's not as pronounced as I
And
thought.
when you identify it as an issue, then are we doing everything that we could do to provide those opportunities, to provide, you know, expanded teams or additional teams?
And I
you
know, and I know
we
students
don't-
do things outside of school, like, you know, some kids,
Yeah.
you know,
Lauren, I
do-
saw your hand up.
they do, you know, ski club, but that's not rigorous physical activity for 5 days. For 5 days a week.
Oh, those
It's
4
1 day a
hours
week
they're
for
there.
6 weeks, and that's if they don't stop for donuts, which they all do.
Vigorous.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something I've known about for a while, and I haven't really known how to express it. I feel like that would help with things like stress, making friends. You know, how do we send that message to kids that, you know, try?
Yeah.
So add more teams? Is that? what you
I
want me
don't
to
know
look
what the
at?
solution is. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I mean, it's something
We
to, I
can't.
think
There's
it's
a
something to
cost.
look
Right,
at.
Yeah, you
yeah.
can.
Gonna
There's a
say
cost.
Transportation and
Yeah.
stipends. It's-
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we
It's a
have the
cost.
issue with that. My suggestion was we could look into, but again, we just had this conversation that we need to cut. So
Yeah.
bringing up something to add, I don't know how helpful it is because it's really not, unless we fee it, which is something we
I mean,
can do.
I guess I don't know what the cut rates are either.
But like we could have freshman teams, like we could have, you know, when we do have no cuts, we have track, we have cross country, we have teams where kids are all welcome, and we have unified sports. I mean, I think we do a great job. So I think some of that is, you know, some of this is growing up, and you start to realize you're not great at
Yeah.
the sport you've been playing, that, you know. So I think encouragement is wonderful. yes, it'd be great if we could add more. I'm not sure if that's the conversation we can have right now yet. But it's different messaging. We also heard from Roseanne all those wonderful clubs that kids could join in too. That also promotes well-being and social, emotional, and there's no cuts in clubs. You know, everybody,
Yeah.
anybody can join a club. So I think it's a mixed bag. I mean, I'd love to, I've had emails from a parent asking for a freshman soccer team. And I think they forwarded it on to Kevin Anderson and all of that, and that would be amazing. That's another thing we have to try to balance. Is that worth having over an adjustment counselor and,
But you just brought up, and I think this is the start of a great conversation, and we're just kind of throwing around, thoughts here, but, in terms of clubs, is there another way to, provide activities after school that aren't MIAA, that are just sort of like the intramural sort of sports, like just soccer club where they just go and play after school, or, cricket at the high school where they just, they just get together and they just play, and it's not for competition. It's not, it's
Yep.
hopefully not expensive. It's a club, but things like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
To get them out there and in a cheaper way.
I think that's so cool, the day of cricket at the middle school, by the way.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But also mathletes. That's a check mark, by the way. That's
No.
in Mean Girls as well.
We only had to,
Yeah, I know.
only had to do one.
Got mine
per
in.
meeting,
But it's sobering.
Yeah. It's a hard time to be a
It
kid.
is hard.
It's a very hard time to be a kid.
So Kristen and I will.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, one more question. How do I put this? Every once in a while, we hear sort of, criticism of the district that we're spending too much time focused on social emotional learning, and, we need to get. But I just wanted to comment or see if you had any information, or maybe we could get information on how this actually also, not only is it so important, but how it affects academics as well. I mean, we just had the middle school principal and assistant principal talk about all the school that the kids are missing because of stress and anxiety. They're missing school, they're missing the lessons, they're missing that instruction. And I'm sure there's kids in the high school who are missing instruction too, because they can't get out of bed in the morning, or they have bullying and they just can't face that. It has effects, I'm sure. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure that has effects on academics as well. And that's another reason that this is so important to address. And I don't know if you had any information about that,
I will
but
soon. I think
Yeah.
Christine had mentioned that truancy project that we're starting. We met as a district leadership team maybe last Wednesday. I guess it was last Thursday afternoon. And we talked about and went through the bullying pieces that we've been discussing. So we did that as a team, and talked about truancy and kind of that limited toolbox that we have at hand. As Christine mentioned, letters, going to the courts. There are a few things that aren't particularly effective that we kind of have. So there are, I think, 6 members of that team who are taking on that project. We're meeting, I guess it's this Thursday, to kind of frame that, to try to figure out what is best practice. We're going to get into that research anyhow. So what you're asking, I'll have, I don't think my thoughts would surprise you. I'm sure they align, but we're going to have probably just a 2 or 3 page kind of synopsis of best practice in research that we're going to present to you when we talk about what our next steps are. So that's coming.
okay, thank you. Anything else from the committee?
Just want to say something about the wellness committee. So we met twice, and this has been a focus of our meetings. So,
Great. Thank you.
And this will be administered again this coming spring. And the turnaround typically isn't this year and a half. It's by next fall, we'd have late summer, early fall, have the results. So, all right.
Sobering. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on that note,
Anything good?
yeah,
Remember
do we
used
have
to
good
have,
news?
like, kids come
Good
and present?
news?
Like, one time they sang.
Oh, we have teachers.
I was looking ahead in the agenda to see if
Hi,
there's
teachers.
anything lighter that we could skip to, but let's just move on. Future agenda schedule, I think we have a plan for the budget hearing and the budget. We're going to go that route if that works. Anything else?
Nope.
Any other suggested changes? Laura, no?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 minutes, meeting minutes,
Oh, I was like, 2 minutes. When
meeting
did we have
minutes?
a time limit.
presented tonight for approval. Anyone would like to, I'll entertain
Madam Chair.
motions for those. Yes, Amy.
I move to approve the minutes of 11:29:22 and 1:10:23.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on these minutes?
I have a little
Yes,
bit of
Amy.
discussion. I'm not going to tie everybody up, but the minutes of the 29th, I have a few grammatical changes. Also, open meeting law requires that we list who's absent on the minutes, so one can easily tell by looking at the minutes whether or not we had quorum. So I would request that the absentee, and I'm staring at it and I can't even think of who it is.
Leora.
Thank you. Be added to the 29th, and then I don't think there was anybody absent at the other one.
No.
But if she could make that change, and then I would like to pass these on through you, Madam Chair, have you take a look at those and just grammatical
The
stuff.
grammatical
Just
errors.
quotes missing and, the
Nothing that. it's
the
all
one change that
very-
I put in at the end was when I talked about the Barron case, I added versus Southborough Select Board, because it was unclear. There are multiple cases involving Barron, the name Barron, that are pending.
Okay.
So I put that in there for future
So
reference.
you wrote Barron versus Southborough Board of Select.
Yes.
And
And
that's
that
their,
case is still pending, by the way. I looked at it today.
and then changed pep team to pep band. Lowercase capital I. Okay. So they're very minor. Does anybody want to see these before I pass them on? Okay. All right, I don't think it's anything controversial. All right, so we still have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? All right, in that case, all those in favor of approving both of those minutes, the November 29th, 2022 minutes with the changes that Mrs. Marr presented?
Aye.
Hi.
All those in favor? Aye, okay, 4, thank you. All right, financial report. Can I get a motion to approve the warrant from January 19th, 2023 in the amount of $83,804.96?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the warrant? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, 4. All right, thank you. Policy, do we have anything to discuss tonight?
No.
No, okay. We'll be meeting soon. We'll have to figure that out.
I think we're waiting to get onto that, so if you can take a look at that contract,
Yeah,
that'd be helpful, and then we can get onto that, and then we can.
okay. I thought we were going to discuss that at all. Are we going to, do we need to discuss that in a policy meeting? No, you don't think so?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. I think that's what I was waiting for,
Oh.
so
Oh, Miss.
glad we
Good-
connected on that.
Glad we connected on that.
Okay.
We can, if
Um,
you do, we can chat, but I
okay,
didn't know that.
okay.
I wasn't aware. Okay.
All right. Member reports. Do we have any member reports? Amy?
Just one.
Yep.
CIPC will meet Tuesday, the 31st. This time it's going to be bylaw changes. The bylaw study committee has asked all committees that have suggestions, comments on the bylaws for their particular part to submit changes to the committee, and we're going to meet and discuss whether we have any changes. I think we will, in terms of the process that we follow, or not. So I'll be doing that next Tuesday.
Marcella?
The Wellness Committee met in January 11th. We added a few more members, and we'll meet again on the 22nd of March, sorry.
Who was added as a member, or
Yeah,
who they represent
the
at least?
Park, look at my notes, Park Rec, Director of Park Rec, another nurse. There was a few members that were absent. There were 3 students, and a science teacher from the high school.
Nice.
Mr.
Great.
Roix? Was it Mr. Roix?
No, it was a lady. I don't remember her name.
All right, any other member reports?
I
Yeah.
attended the DECA Gala. Great job, Mrs. Spinney, and great job to the students. It was a lovely evening.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a great
it
night.
was a great night.
The kids were awesome. Yeah, they're so so well spoken, and there were a lot of speeches. You heard speeches during the event, but then you got the best speeches afterwards when everyone went home, and then they were all they had the chairs of the event, and then the co-presidents gave speeches to the whole group, and they were just off the cuff, hadn't prepared anything, and they just were so well spoken. I was very impressed with that group of kids. So it was a good night, and I think a lot of them were juniors, so they're really excited about doing it again next year, which is great. Yeah, I was honored to have been asked to help, so I was happy to do that. Correspondence? I don't think we don't have.
I
any.
just, I looked at my notes from the wellness committee. You had asked which teacher. It's Miss Konis, Stephanie Konis.
Oh,
joined.
okay.
Mhm.
Nice. We don't need executive session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
4. All right, meeting adjourned.